Let's have a real trad classic crafting ep. Howdy doodly do, this is Greg Johnson making, and today I'm making modifications to a 35-year-old toy from Bucky O'Hare. Bucky, Captain Bucky O'Hare, was originally a comic book series from 1984 and later a cartoon and very popular video game. The comic was written by Larry Hama and beautifully drawn by Michael Golden, but only lasted for 6 issues and a single series of the cartoon, which I loved when I was a kid. I have a long-held theory that you can't be a truly great TV show unless you have a great theme tune, and Bucky O'Hare certainly had that. Please do stay tuned, or indeed skip to the end, for a very exciting musical special guest and the greatest piece of music ever recorded in history. What's Bucky O'Hare about? Well, you know Star Wars? That. It's birds and mammals versus toads, warm-blooded things versus cold-blooded things. There's always a bit of casual race hatred in sci-fi, but you know, we're dealing with archetypes, so it's fine. The mammals form a valiant resistance group called SPACE, Sentient Protoplasm Against Colonial Encroachment, and the evil invading empire with all the power and the money and the spaceships are the toads. It's very satirical and funny, almost Douglas Adams-y in places. Big helping of Ninja Turtles and a bit of Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah, it's fun stuff. A friend of mine, hello Jeff if you're watching, once asked me what would be your unlimited budget movie that you would direct, and I said without hesitation, Bucky O'Hare. It'd be a flop. I might insist on it all being animatronic costumes like the original Ninja Turtles movie. So yes, I like to think it could be my John Carter or even Jupiter Ascending. I'd need about $300 million. At some point in the ridiculously futuristic sounding year 2026, I'm going to make a righteous indignation for Bucky and his crew, but I thought I'd start small and set the scale and the style for the miniatures for my live action imaginary Bucky O'Hare movie by updating a toy. This is the Toad Double Bubble. It's the attack ship that the toads fly around in. If you buy a new or pristine boxed one, they're sort of $200, but this one had missing bits, which was even more encouraging because it meant I could make the bits that are missing. So I bought it as a small hobby project, which it wasn't, as you can see. So we're going to break down the toy, then we're going to add some fins, the engine, do various techniques for paneling, then we're going to detail the whole bottom half, make a grappling hand, some cannons, then for an intermission we're going to see how to make some boosters, then we're going to cast the Toad action figure because I needed 2 of them, so learn how to cast action figures, then we're going to add cockpits, then it's prime time, then we're going to paint the ship, paint the toads, assemble the whole thing and see the finished thing with, as I said, a very exciting musical guest. It's a longie, so let's get on with it. Let's have a breakdown. So when you buy toys, you just need to break them down, remove the stickers, clean them up, stuff like that. Copyright 1990. I found that Toad Trooper figure separately on eBay, and I'm going to copy it because I need 2. Whether that proves cost effective, that's a teaser. For removing stickers, use a heat gun. It's a trick I've learned from Dr. Toys. If you're interested in seeing people modify and improve toys, he's the guy to watch. Keeping all these stickers on a bit of card because I want them for reference. That hexagonal pattern I'm going to mimic, and the red and yellow skulls and crossbones. That ball bearing really interested me. Until I found the advert for this toy on YouTube, I didn't know what that was for. I thought that was meant to be something rotating or spinning inside, but it's actually the plastic teeth. It creates a croaking noise, if that's what you need. So take out the alcoholic shard and just spray it. Great way to find little injuries in your hands is to spray alcohol onto them. I shoved a screwdriver into the side of my finger. So apologies for raising my middle finger in that shot there. Sorry YouTube. Please let me stay. So one of the many parts that were missing from this incomplete and therefore nicely cheap toy were the fins. I took a photo of every image of this ship in the comic book and also some screen grabs from the cartoon. I think the classic example of what I'm trying to do here is the modern Dalek. So you take an old simple design and you just tech it up. You add paneling and weight and rivets, but you keep the silhouette the same, detailing them up with some little toy rockets into which I've put the tops of felt pen lids that had a nice turbine-y quality, some textured plastic which was the divider from inside an old satchel, and I'm using cable ties to add detail to those edges and ends, and then some riveting. Not too much riveting because the scale of this thing is quite big, so you don't need to add thousands of teeny tiny rivets. Speaking of thousands of things, greebly overwhelm. I've been thinking about Greebly Overwhelm. Is that a Star Wars character? Or a sort of Valley of Shadows from Lord of the Rings? Many enter, few return. From the Greebly Overwhelm. I've got too many thousands of bits, but I'm just picking which ones I want. So I'm opening up this magnetic triangular toy, so I've got some free little magnets, and I'm going to detail this panel, this teardrop shaped panel of engine, thinking of the engines on the back of Starbug. I'm thinking of Starbug from Red Dwarf most of the time, really. So yes, triangular magnet toy, and then this is screen door repair tape. It's just plastic or cloth mesh on a bit of slightly clear tape. This, I think, was a bangle or some sort of ring. It might have been from the old bird cage I made my Borg cube from. Just sanding it on one side to create a surface of gluability. Those curves in there are just bits of plastic from around a cap of... They're just little detailed bits of stuff that I can't throw away. A rifle rest from my boot Lego, knockoff Lego range. This 90s plastic, you can put a nice pilot hole in there just using a push pin, and these are cogs and wheels from an old Walkman that Freya and Daryl sent me. Thanks, Freya and Daryl. A little plastic tab that I've used many times before that I just like. These are plant clips, I think, for clipping plants. That's the edge of some computer parts that I use for Windows on my Vogon ship. This is the zip lock from a document folder. It's a fun project to do. I heartily encourage it if you find your toys to be underwhelming. A bit of riveting, another wheel from inside a Walkman, and you're just looking for anything with quite fine but low res detail so it doesn't change the shape of the beast. Some soap pump bottle, little slivers of that just added onto that ring. Then it's time to add the fins, which just fit, almost pressure fit into those slots very nicely, and these are again some real sort of party favour cheapo aeroplanes, but they have nice panel lines on the wings to just fill that space nicely, and it's like a jigsaw. You just find things which fit and think that should go there. This tape is really satisfying to use. This is well, it's ribbon wire, like old computer cable. You can just pull it apart into however many wires you want. It takes super glue well, so it's very good for line details. Speaking of line details, this is paneling. There was already some line panel detail on the wings, and I thought, well, let's extend that. Again, as an experiment, it's all just trying things, thinking, is that a good idea? And it worked quite well. Use the sharp edge of the knife for the first one, and then dig out the line with the back of the knife, and you won't regret it. Bit of a plastic tab from inside an ID card holder that just have these little teeth. And speaking of low relief detail, stickers. This white panel is the sibling to the one I used as the shirt front for Chippy, the killer wood chipper in my big bot bash video. Has pegs on the back, so drilling a little hole and super glue on the inside. This is my paneling system that I developed. Get a hole press, I think it's a leather hole punch. Do them on the back to push through rivets. They're pretty low res rivets, but it's satisfying to do a technique you invented, or in your case that I invented. This is the packaging strap stuff you get around parcels. More rivets for thick stickers, using this time a ball stylus, like a sculpting tool, just to push. I did break 2 ball styluses, so maybe use something else. Just to push rivets through from the back. My LEDs just started changing colour. Oh, it's chaos. I mean, that's a very, very low standard of chaos, but I have quite a sedentary life. Okay, now it's not chaos. Always on the lookout for an interesting shaped sticker. So these yellow things are, you put them around wires as wire labels for labelling your cables, cable labels. And then the simplest rivet is to use a gomjaba. It's a metal spike, the most useful tool there is, and just make your rivets holes. Always nervous about just sticking a cog on something. I sound like I'm anti-steampunk. I'm not. This is a cog motif. Motif, no problems, I always say. For a vent panel, so a little sticker, 6 holes, and a bit of, again, the sort of fastener from along the bottom, I think, of a plastic document folder. And then these are mini disc stickers. They're antiques, but they deserve their time in the sun. The bottom half. Let's detail the bottom half. Didn't know how to divide this into chapters really, so we're just going to add some detail. So first thing is to fill in these rectangular holes, just using a bit of cloth embroidery mesh, which I'm backing with black card in case anyone looks in. I don't want them seeing my interior. Then this is the ring from around the top of some sandwich spread that I've wanted to use for a long time. If you look at plastic pots like yogurt, if you turn them over, usually they have little fins all the way around the underside. So here I'm cutting off the plastic of the pot so I can use the underside of this ring, and it will have little fins. I had to cut through it so it's a C in the end because it wasn't quite big enough to fit around the under hatch. More greebly overwhelm. I just had to have a little sit down. Because some of these greeblies I want to keep for my righteous indignation, and some of them are more toady. Some of them are for the grappling hand, some of them are for the cockpit. So I just got a lot of gochujang pots and I just had a little sit down on the floor and tried to fight the overwhelm with organisation. Organisation is my hero, and is what saves me from... I mean, I'm thinking the word despair, but I shouldn't say that, should I? Confusion. What's going on there? It's a drill. Let's detail the escape hatch. A steering wheel shaped button. I put a tiny plastic washer underneath so it's just ever so slightly raised up, and attached it with a wood screw and just a block of wood on the inside. A copper washer. These are computer parts, just a nice, very fine, thin strip of detail. More mesh tape, just create a template using a pink post-it note of all the little fan shape segments, just flattening it down with a cotton bud, and it works very nicely. And now it's time to glue on. If you can hear the cat meowing in the background, just if you can't, then you're going to think there's a cat in my head. Come on. I'm just going to talk over him, because that's the easiest way of dealing with him. He'll be up here soon, I just know it. This was a bangle, definitely a plastic or Bakelite bangle from a charity shop, and just create a flat side. This stuff with holes which looked toady to me is kitchen drawer liner. So again, made a template of the empty front panel out of a bit of paper and just cut it out of that. It's toady. Filling the gap in the collar around the hatch with a bit of, this is a novelty robot pen, attaching it with a wood screw, and I think just covering the wood screw with a bit of hot glue, goth glue, sorry, on the back, which will grab into the screw and attach. Crispy onions! Ideal for salads, pasta and potatoes! Exclamation mark! That's no call for an exclamation mark there. Nicely detailed flap, crispy onions. Hey, I'm a cool dog in sunglasses. So many voices. This is a night of 1,000 voices. Well, 3 voices. So attach that with the very smallest split pins you can buy, and then some goth glue on the back. This is a piece of a toy car park. You don't need me to tell you that. Parking lot, sorry. And then I stuck that on. Many faces on this one. That was a fun thing. I kept making sort of angry Homer Simpsons everywhere I looked. I can't remember what it's called, but we see faces and things, don't we, as humans? And this thing is full of them. Bit of car park, stick some mesh tape on there so it's not too plain. And then these are my favourite rivets. This is studded suede. It looks a bit suedey, but once it's been primed and painted it looks fine, just like rough metal. This is a bit of milk bottle that I saved from when I used a milk bottle on my Poor Things artwork. Not my most popular video, but give it a watch. Just above the handle on a big jug of milk there is this little fin detail thing. I will use it for something else later. So I decided this would have 3 hatches because my version in my movie, they have retractable legs. So you need 3 hatches where the legs come out. Are they going to be herb lids, or are they going to be the retractable wire thing from a card, like an ID card holder? They're going to be the latter. Pilot hole with a gomja bar, small hole with a drill bit, and then make the hole big enough using a step bit or conical drill bit. Again, simple rivets is just pushing holes in from the outside. Then these things are, I think they're for attaching the panelling inside a car, like a car boot. It's just a plastic screw with a plastic collar that opens up on the back, like a roll plug. And I want to use them more. They're good, they're useful things. So all I'm doing is putting some goth glue on the inside just to stop it from rotating. But they have a nice flat panel sort of domedness to them, and just to cover up the screw I'm using some steering wheel shaped snap fasteners and little bits of plant cable tie to create the feeling of a hinge. So these trapdoors look a bit like they open to release legs, which they don't. Lindos Hotels, thank you to Lindos Hotels for sponsoring this. No, silly. These are my wife and I's wristbands from when we went on holiday to Greece, which have now been immortalised forever in this spaceship. And once again doing some lazy rivets with a gomja bar. A rivet that goes in is a lazy rivet, a stuck-on dome is a hard-working and conscientious rivet. Using my mitre shears to cut one of these, I think they're just card sort of tongue depressor shaped things in half to detail up the sides where the guns go in, and then adding strips of, thank you to James Hilton, who sent me a big box of all sorts of mystery exciting items, one of which was a bag of these the adjuster straps you get on the back of a hat. You're going to be seeing them a lot because it's a big bag. Out of this world, more sticker work. Any interestingly shaped sticker I keep in this drawer. Sand it, rivet it, this time riveting because, as I say, I broke two of my ball styluses, with a retractable pencil, which isn't perfect, but you get some nicely sort of hammered looking rivets. Rivet. There must be some joke in rivet, and this is a towed ship. So if you could write in with a joke, maybe every time I rivet I say rivet and a little toad appears. Would that get annoying in this long a video? I am scared of being annoying, which you wouldn't think from some of the things I do. The vent cover from the sink overflow. These are really nice. They're just plastic. I'm going to use my step bit to make a hole. So just hold it, find the width you want on your step bit and just make a mark. And you've got a hole into which your sink vent just fits very nicely. But then obviously a bit of goth glue on the inside. Because we're all goth glue on the inside. Black, sticky ooze. And there's that bit of milk bottle, which I finally put in the armpit and added some lazy rivets. Again, this cable, this ribbon cable, you just sort of pull it apart and it's very satisfying, and I'm just finding lines. I think this is the most enjoyable bit. I found these two parallel lines that came out and joined onto the booster at the back, and more hat strap to add some nodes. If you need a trapezium, just cut a hexagon in half. Little life hack. And then this stuff, this I bought to use as texture on something else months and months ago, but it's for detailing on your car if you're the kind of person who likes to, you know, gussy up your wheels. These are sticky vinyl hexagons, and hexagons seem to be the motif of the Toad Empire. More on that later. I've got the giggles. Grappling hand. So the toy comes with two grappling hands, because obviously they're not threatening like a cannon or blaster, but in the cartoon and the comic book some of the ships have grabby hands and some of them have 4 cannons or blasters. So in my movie the ships have one of each. Bit of live thinking while I consider using these water pistol parts, but here I thought I'd include this because that's a decision where no, this will change the silhouette too much, too chunky. So in the end I found these rings. The joy of scratch building is finding things that fit just by chance. These are moisturizer pots. My wife actually had the audacity to throw one of these in our bedroom bin. I didn't talk to her for, no, it's fine. It's like 4 good rings that come out of one lid. So they're gold. Was I tempted to use this keyring grabby hand as the grabby hand? Was I? And how? But no, we're better than that. So this is a toy wheel which when I flipped it round had some really nice detail on the back. Thank you very much to long-time supporter Anne Johnson, Mum, I sometimes, it's just a little thing between us, a little nickname I have for her, for giving me this box of old K'NEX, I think, toys. Very nice, I find. Same thing with boot Lego, is making something out of a toy that's meant to be dismantled afterwards and then gluing it all together. It feels sort of rebellious. Made some fingers out of K'NEX, then a little wheel to put them in place, which I'm covering with a child pirate. Always welcome. Child pirates. Holding those in place with super glue and baking soda, which forms a crusty gap-filling glue, and then over that, because it's going to be covered, with some goth glue as well. Clothes pegs! An idea I've done before, using the grippy ends of clothes pegs as fingertips and just detailing out the back with some of the lovely boot Lego sent to me by Daryl and Freya. More cloth tape, and then these are brooch backs, like badge back pins with 3 holes in. And to make these look slightly more like they hinge, which of course they don't, I'm sticking on half hair braid beads, these corrugated tubes. And then these are, can anyone tell me what these are? These brass gold things, but just adding some fine techie detail so it looks more like it can hinge open. This was hours of sitting with various tubes and finding things that fit inside other things, but they're made almost entirely of felt tip pen parts, apart from the little grey beads which are from K'NEX. Just standing them up in a mega block while the glue dries. And then this black disc is the underside of it. It's a furniture foot. So I've cut a slot in the back of each one so they sit on the radial struts inside this thing, and I put a blob of 2-part 5-minute epoxy and then just slotting the cannons into their housing. And in the middle, that's again the winding peg and a cog from a tape player or a Walkman or something. Skull and crossbones. So I bought these little plastic skulls knowing I'd need them before something ages ago. They're not quite accurate to the toad skull, but below a certain size I can't do nano sculpture. So it's plastic skulls, some bits of computer wire and some beads mounted on a coffee bag filter, and then these guns were just hollow on the back. So very simply filling them out with paper drinking straws wrapped in black masking tape, some bits of Warhammer toys, thanks to Jack Edwards Fox, paper clips, a miniature Nutella tab, a push button like a popper button fastener, and some bits of guitar string. And they're done. Let's have an intermission. How to make a booster. Boosters! The first of 2 chapters whose title sounds like an exclamation of annoyance. So, take the knob from your old broken toaster and pop it through a moisturiser. Cap, again, step bit, get a big hole in there. Then to make the toaster part stick out slightly further, I've just put in 2 of these wooden rings to boost it up a little bit. Not even worth acknowledging that pun, is it really? And then these are the rockets off the back of a toy spaceship, into which I've put some halves of brass popper buttons. And that's your boosters. Done! Hello to the McGarvey family. It was lovely to meet you at Thought Bubble. I'm sorry I couldn't work your name into this episode in a clever or witty way like I said I would. Toad casting. T-O-A-D. So I bought this Toad Trooper figure on eBay. And the only other one I could find, the second cheapest one on eBay, was like 16 quid. So I got it into my head, well, let's learn how to, I mean, really I'm doing this to learn a new technique. That's the important part, is learning a new thing. So I thought, well, let's cast this guy and make 2. Sat him head first in some hot water for a bit and popped his head off and one of his arms. I didn't have that much 2-part silicone, so I thought, well, I'll definitely cast the head, and then I was going to sculpt some bodies, but I had enough that I thought, actually, I'll cast the detail off the front of the chest and then one of the hands. Because with a hand, if you just make 4 left or right hands, you can just turn it over and add a thumb on the top and it becomes the other hand. But yeah, this was fun. So making a system out of coiled wire and blue tack, just casting up to the chin, because I think the head is one piece and smooth enough that it will just pull out of the silicone without me having to split the silicone mould. So make a... well, there's the real thing. If you place a boot Lego wall around a picture of a cat and say the magic incantation, it will make one appear. Bit of health and safety there. Then this is a way to cast the chest. I'm just sort of sitting it chest down using blue tack and using a hay fever nasal spray pot to cast one of the hands. So mixed up almost all the 2-part silicone I have. Good way to mix it is just pour it into a clean cup. Learned that from Punished Props. Mix it for 5 minutes, let it sit for 4 or 5 minutes, and that was all my waste, which is just a tiny bit. Then cover it over with some popcorn, have a big night in, and this is the next day. Cut away the plastic cup, snip off the wires, and sure enough, quite excitingly really, the toad head just popped out. Still as furious as ever. So there it is. Finely detailed. Same thing again, just cut away the outside cup, remove the wires, and this hand just popped out. Oh, having filled the hole in the hand with blue tack. You don't want the silicone to go through a hole, because then obviously it won't pull out. It needs to be solid. It all worked great, which is very enjoyable. Apart from, in future, I will just use card or foam board or something to make my walls, because once you get silicone into boot Lego, even if you cover it in tape, it has that silicone greasiness. So that all needs washing in hot soapy water, and it's just in a cup over there waiting to be washed. And it's yucky. So this was more fun than simply buying the second action figure. However, I did see Eric's Hobby Workshop at the worst possible time. I saw Eric's Hobby Workshop using this smooth cast stuff, which is 2-part epoxy plastic that cures in about 10 minutes. and cost 32 quid. So my plan to just use the resin that I already have, which at this thickness would take like 24 hours to go hard, or to get some plaster of Paris or something cheap, went out the window, because I thought, well, let's experience a new material, and it's good stuff. But also please sign up to my Patreon. 15 minutes later, these things are solid. I mean, it's got a lot of air bubbles in it, but that for this doesn't matter. I want these two toes to be slightly different greens. I'm going to paint them, but if they get scratched, they will be green underneath, so it seemed worth colouring it. Put the colour into part B, mix that thoroughly, then mix all that into part A, and you do not have long. On the first pour, I wasted quite a lot of it, because I thought I would be able to pour it into, there is my my Red Dwarf and Vogon picture frame mould, so I can just make spare greeblies with any spare resin I have, but it thickened and hardened so quickly, it was just a sort of plastic hot lump in a cup. So yes, wasted quite a lot of this, quite expensive, it's fine. And while it's still soft, sort of toffee soft, you can cut away any raggedy bits. Here I'm bulking out the back with some plastic toy eggs and some of these already cast resin hemispheres to give them sort of buttocks and shoulder blades, and attaching the head with super glue and a blob of goth glue. Black milliput, so take equal parts of each sausage, smush them together for 7 minutes, and then you've got quite a while. Just smooth it out with water, and I'm just sculpting a sort of rough back and thinking about how I'm not a very good sculptor. Which, funnily enough, I think every time I sculpt. But adequacy was achieved, and that's all we need. These beehive beads I thought would make good replacement pauldrons, so just holding it down with a gom jabbar and diagonally cutting it in half with my rotary tool. It's also good for that, which is fun. And then adding wrists onto these hands, just using a wooden push pin as the sort of cuff, and then half a hair braid tube. I maybe made some arms out of rubber tubing put over plastic shower curtain rings, but I didn't use them in the end, so we don't need to talk about that. And roughly copying the detail of the action figure, just putting some wire on the back, a little square bead and some bits of cable tie for their braces. And once it's all painted, they will blend together very well. So there's the cockpit. It is a black masking tape covered yogurt pot stuck to the underside of some black styrene. And then to make these guys tall enough, these little plastic tubes I got from Scrap, just our local craft scrap place, made them the right height. They don't need legs, because once they're in their cockpits, they're never coming out. So just gave them little bases. Bang, and the toads are done. Cockpits! That's the other chapter, which sounds like a shout of annoyance. So, black styrene cut into the right shape. As I say, some yogurt pots. Cut a round hole in the styrene and then tidy up that hole with some wooden rings. These are going to be very roughly and thickly painted over, because I want it to have like an orange peel, like a car dashboard, quite stippled, leathery texture. And then I thought, well, they should have some sort of computer in front of them. So we're using another one of these plastic toy eggs and making these screens using, always wanted to use these, paint swatches, I think from Valspar paints. And there are two that have two slightly different holes in them, sticking those together to make my computer screens, just using glue stick, which is not a glue I get to use very often. And then this is more detail from a plastic document folder, just to tidy up that edge around where the screen meets the egg. And I'm very pleased with those. You could cut out your own round-cornered screen hole, but finding one is much more enjoyable. These are the cap dome things off the top of a can of air freshener, just used to detail out the back. And this is an old watch strap from when I made my Alien Ripley cosplay and had just a spare watch strap left over, which had some nice holes in it. Then to make a see-through computer screen, this is Techno holographic tape, lightly sanding some green plastic document file, putting holographic tape on one side, but then I thought, well, if it's going to be lit from the back, I could put the other type of tape on the back, and then you've got 2 layers of techie detail. And for some very fine extra grid, using carpet tape, which is just heavy-duty double-sided tape, to stick on a bit of extra green lighting gel. You can barely see it there, but the tape, because it's cloth tape, it has this very fine grid pattern to it. And with that, wouldn't you know it, it's a time, I hope you've missed it, I know I have, it's prime time. So I primed the bottom half with the lovely yellow primer I got from TT Combat for my Vogon ship, and the top half with the cheapest spray paint you can find on the internet, which was much shinier and definitely not as good at taking paint. Got this lovely warm yellow, so I've just mixed up a lighter, paler yellow, because I want to keep it all yellow but put in variations. There's a little salutary example. If you're using clear greeblies, you might stick them on the wrong way around. So it was only after priming that I realised I put on that strip with the detail on the inside. But I'm going to paint those bits silver anyway, so I'm just flipping that over. This is inconvenient. Whoop. And then Posca pen. I just looked around for any other yellow I have, and I do like using pens where possible. Scribble it all over quite lumpily and then just dab it with a makeup sponge and it goes smooth. Same thing with those hexagons. There's going to be a sort of light grime wash on this, but as I said, I don't want them to be too rusty or beaten up, because this is the Empire, so they're not quite as down on their luck as the Resistance. The top half I spray painted with this quite muted sort of racing green, and then just a light speckle pass with some much more bright lime green, and then a bit more of the racing green over the top, so it just has a sort of dappled texture to it. But here I'm dry brushing over some brighter, more sort of pea green, and again painting some in and just flattening out the texture with a makeup brush, and that works really well. Slightly heavier overbrush on any details that took a bit of effort and you don't want to miss, and then more hexagons. In tribute to both the hexagon stickers that were on the toy originally, and also in the comic book, these ships have a lot of dappled sort of camouflage on the top half. I suddenly remembered I had this hexagon stencil, which I'd bought to use as a texture. Never meant to use it actually as a painting stencil, but there it is. I think this is the piece of Resistance best bit, or the new thing where I thought, ooh, I'll try that. Because trying new techniques is always what keeps this channel alive. Yes, tried not to go too mad, but anywhere I could get the stencil to fit flush to the ship, just did a quite concentrated area of texture which I dappled out to the edges. This is a mixture of black paint and Mod Podge because I want it to be thick, but I'm not sticking the computers on yet because I haven't put the lights in. So it's, again, there's always a bit of brain Tetris of what order to do things in. Then this is a liquid chrome pen. Most of the engine here I brush painted with lead belcher, which is a nice warm pewter dark silver, but then adding some much brighter silver highlights with a liquid chrome pen. Same thing on the wheel on the underside there. Because it's not a ton of weathering, so I'm just picking areas. Look at that. An oil wash. I'm not slapping it all over because I don't want to make the whole thing darker. So this is just black oil paint mixed with some white spirits and just hit it anywhere you want it to run along, and the capillary action will take care of you. Then, truth be told, this yellow half is a bit more weathered than I wanted it to be, but it does wipe off, and I just wanted all the lines to pop, and I think it looks really nice. It's still cartoony, but with not so many just empty flat areas. Then the gun and techno parts at prime time were spray painted with a metallic blue and then sort of quite lightly oversprayed with a chrome paint. So I'm just hitting these with a bit more of the black wash and then a few liquid chrome and gold highlights. Let's paint some toads. Because I figured the TT Combat yellow primer was the best primer I had, I painted these yellow too, because I just want them to take paint well. I'm mixing up two very different greens. This yellowy green is one of the toads, and then I added blue and a little bit of black to it to make a darker green for the other guy. Really stippling that on because it's rough. They're called warty a lot. And not being too tidy about it because you know that the helmet and the teeth and these edges are going to be painted over if they're messy, so that's fine. Adding some dark warts just with a toothpick, and then this once-in-a-lifetime blue, never to be mixed again, from like 3 shades of blue and a bit of purple, a bit of black, a bit of white, and I just made a blue that I like. More warts, and then this is a new gold pen. It's like liquid chrome, but in gold. Really nice. Even if the nib can't get into these little spaces, just squeeze it down on something not absorbent, and you can use it like paint, and just fill in any gaps. Speaking of finding paint in weird places, I needed a new shade of green, and I felt like there were no more new shades of green. But I saw this very old, very thick acrylic paint I had that was quite blue, and then the green Posca pen. So again, just squirt the pen down into your palette and mix them together, and it gave me a nice new green, which I was really happy with. This eye detail is slightly lost, but just put a tiny blob of a red contrast paint and then pull out some veins with a cocktail stick. this is good practice for when I do the Mammal Rebels in part 2 next year, sometime. Agrax Earthshade, my favourite contrasty wash. Just a brown wash onto all the gold to stop it from being too shiny and clean. Painted the eyes to look like toad eyes. And then this is Gloss Mod Podge. These warts kind of shrink a bit as they dry, but again wanted it to be lumpy. And then because these are pink goggles, adding some UV resin, move it around with a toothpick, and then very quickly jump in and then cure it using the most useful of things that none of us would be complete without, a little torch which can create only the most intense of purpleness. It's time for assembly, kids. These are toy Gundam parts that were handed to me by Jack Edwards Fox at Thought Bubble. Thank you very much. So I'm attaching the hands to the dashboard first, using these pins, super glue and goth glue on the underside, then covering over the heads of these ball head dressmaking pins with these cup things from this Gundam kit, adding a bit of silver to the knobs on the side, but that's the only paint job they get. Then I stuck in the toads and then just figured out the arms. Now, in the interests of full transparency, these arms at the time, I was quite despondent about them because they're quite little, aren't they? I think they're cute now, they're completely fine, but this was a dark, dark time. I think because I'd made some arms, which were the plan, and then I needed about this much arm, just made some tiny little sausages of Milliput and pushed them into the gap between the shoulder and the wrist, detailed them up with some creases, and they look absolutely fine. Dude, go easy on yourself. When you add lights, you need somewhere to put the battery pack and the switch and stuff, so one of these boosters I've added a little neodymium magnet, and I've stuck a bit of Meccano on the inside, just very crudely using hot glue, so one of these boosters is detachable, and then glued onto that the battery pack and switch. So there's 4 lights taped together, put up into each dashboard, and finally I can stick on the eggy consoles. Then using my rare shade of blue, once the Milliput is cured, to colour in the arms. And we can finally attach the techie stuff. So this is just a wood screw put through the gun into a block of wood on the back, and then, as was a sticker in the original toy, add on one of my little skulls and crossbones. And it is finally time to reassemble. Hadn't lost the screws, never lose your screws. Anything which crosses over the green and yellow sides can now be attached. So I've scratched around the arm, I'm sticking on the grappling hand and the cannons, and that, my dear, dear friends, is the finished thing. And now, as I said earlier, with a very, very exciting musical guest who I love for doing this, please welcome, with the finished thing, Mr. Brett Domino. The kid can play. Replace your hats or wigs or your socks, whatever was blown off by that piece of music. As I say, there will be a part 2 in this 2-part series where I make The Righteous Indignation. I'm thinking we should take that instrumental and make it into a full version of the Bucky O'Hare theme tune, which I may try and sing. Should I do that? Am I genuinely asking a question, or am I just trying to drum up enthusiasm? Actually, no, I'm going to do it. So comment below if you want to try and stop me. Or you could show your general support and encouragement for that idea by posting a comment below using the secret code word BRIDGE. So that is one of many things to look forward to in 2026. There's going to be props that I'm making for exciting drag queens, there's going to be more Lovecrafty spooky stuff, there's going to be Bucky O'Hare, there will probably be some more Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, there is definitely going to be a TV show themed cosplay competition which I am going to enter, and win. At least that's the plan. So if anything I've just said is very much your bag and you would like to help the channel continue, then it would be awesome if you could support me, just like Chaz P, of course, who's going to get Rob Thomas. There's always going to be Rich P. There's always going to be the incredible and rather glorious Victoria Oldman, the wonderful Andrew Loveridge, the inimitable Chris Edwards. Of course, there's Matt Minifreak Pomfret, isn't there? There always is. Rob Palmer, can't forget about you. Yunners, wonderful. Flippy Pixel, you're marvellous. Logan Farley, you're equally fantastic. Stephen Kirk, oh, the Kirkster as I always call him. Ed McFadden's got the same surname as Beverly Crusher, actress out of Star Trek. Jason Daniels, like he's a magician like Bill Daniels. KP Saint, he's nutty. KP Nuts. Berkshire Busters, keep on busting, they ain't afraid of no ghosts. Alistair Corbett, the old Betmeister. Alternative View, well, we don't have to take an alternative view, don't we? Timothy Hoyer, ahoy there, Timothy. And of course, Anthony Gray. Never a grey area when you're having fun with Anthony Gray. I'm trying to make a nice comment about every name. That's a new service I provide. I don't know if I say it uncomfortably often, but the Patreon means the whole wide world to me, because it enables me to keep going and moving forward and trying new things and working to put a bit of frivolity and silliness and creativity and enthusiasm back into this often rather challenging world of ours. So thank you all for being all ones of the good ones and helping me to continue trying to be one too. Thanks so much for watching, lots of love from me, Merry Christmas if you celebrate it, and I'll see you soon.